Liz, and welcome to my midlife crisis, or YouTube channel, whatever. Today I'm going to tell you about a desk I built. So what I wanted to do was basically take this inspiration, the circles that are on Matte Fraction's trade paperback of Hawkeye, and do something kind of subtle and a bit more classy than a bullseye. So that's what I did. I kind of made an artistic version of this with my very limited art skills, basically drawing circles, and have a lovely purple Hawkeye desk that I can work at from home. So first things first, I needed some wood. Luckily I already had some because prior to making my desk I did a test version and made my partner a desk who also has to work from home. Unfortunately, I used all the nice bits of wood for his desk because it was just going to be pretty in wood, and so I was kind of left over with the bits that didn't quite go together, but it still worked out. So I took the wood that I had and I lined it up to figure out which sides went best together, and even though I didn't really needed to do this step, I drilled some holes and put some dowels in it just for a little bit of structural integrity. Then I glued it all together, and luckily it fit together, though you'll see from the video that it was a little bit uneven. But luckily I could just sand down the edge so it wasn't as obvious when I painted it. So after gluing it all together, I clamped it all together, put some weights on to make sure it stayed together. So I kind of knew from the beginning that I might want to cut down the whole size of the desk as my office is quite narrow and I didn't want to basically be squished against my shelf. So once it was all complete, I actually did that, and it was slightly terrifying as I hadn't actually used a circular saw probably for the last decade, if not more, but luckily it went really smoothly. The kind of saw just pulls itself ahead and it was actually quite easy. So if you're terrified of saws, it's not too bad. You can still pick it up. Then of course there was an epic amount of sanding, front and back, and when that was all smooth and all the wood fill bits filled in, I primered it, and then it was time to draw the circles. Now, I have watched a lot of YouTube over the last year, and everyone says, oh, you just take a piece of string and a nail and you just make a circle. It is much harder than that. Maybe I shouldn't have been using the string I used, maybe you should use something like fishing line. I did not have any fishing line. So it took a little bit of trial and error before I finally managed to get the circle I wanted. I think if there's any advice for you in this is don't use that method. Find like a compass, even though I haven't also used one of those in the last decade, and just get something a little better and more precise to draw your circles. So, painting. Again, I wanted to make this slightly, I don't know, more artistic impression of an existing artistic impression. So I only used two colors. One, this was like less costly, but also I'm not very good at any of this, so I wanted to make it the least troublesome as possible. So I started with the color that was going to be the least color on the desk, the lighter color of purple, and painted those rings. I then taped up the whole desk and used an X-Acto knife to kind of get the circles in shape so I'd have a more crisp line in the bullseye. After that, it was more painting, and this time it was the darker color, and I'm glad I went with the darker color because it looks amazing. The only problem I had with this paint was that for some reason it was very bubbly. So I asked Dr. YouTube, and they said that I was either pressing too hard on the roller or didn't have enough paint on it, but I had lots of paint and was barely touching it, so I don't know what was wrong with it. But what I did to fix it was essentially just going over with really lightly with the roller once it dried a little and popped all the bubbles. After one coat, you have to do the second coat, but halfway through painting I basically kind of adjusted the lines a bit, so I actually had to do a bunch of touch-ups to make it as good as possible. But in the end it turned out really well, and I'm so pleased with how it looks. So once it was all dry, I took it upstairs and attached it to my desk, and because I'm very fancy I got a standing desk, even though I've only used it about twice since I have attached it to that desk. And so that's it. I made a desk. And I'm really pleased with how it turned out. It's not perfect by any means, but for the first attempt at, sawing in a very long time and trying anything remotely, involving paint or precision has been a very long time coming. And it's great. And every time I look at it while I'm working, I just feel really pleased at the outcome. It's just what I wanted. Now, there's loads of things that I may have done differently if I do this again. One, like I said, having a more precise thing to draw out these circles. I think maybe other YouTubers only do one, but having to do kind of 3 concentric circles made it an extra level of difficulty. I think as well as trying to figure out how to make sure the boards line up, or maybe get like a mini planer so I can make everything perfectly flat would also be good. So that's it from my Hawkeye desk, but if you were going to make yourself a sophisticated comic inspired desk, what would you do? Do that whole thing where all the YouTubers tell you to comment below. Do that for me. My next DIY is going to be similarly sophisticated and nerdy, so do that whole subscribe thing if you want to see that. So until next time, see you later!